So to register the domain, I need to be logged into my general account and access Route 53, which is AWS's DNS product. If you want to register your own domain and use it for this course, you're welcome to do so, but it will cost money. The price varies based on the domain that you're registering. It won't be a requirement to have a domain for the course, but it will make things a little bit more real-world-like. So the choice is yours. You can get a cheap domain, and I'll show you some of the different prices, but it's not required for the course, but it will make it slightly more real-world. So to get started, we need to open the Route 53 console so we can use the services drop down and search, or we can click on Route 53 if we've been to the service before. Once we're at the Route 53 console, if we haven't used Route 53 before, then we'll have to click on Get Started under Domain Registration. If we have used Route 53 before, we can get to there by going to Domains and then Registered Domains on the left-hand menu. So go ahead and click that. Now, Route 53 is a very feature-rich DNS product. It allows you to register domains so it can bill you and get a domain added to a generic TLD or a country code TLD registry. So it handles that domain registration component. But it also provides the ability to host the zone for your domain, and it provides managed name servers which will actually host that domain on your behalf. So it offers an end-to-end DNS service. So step one is to actually register a domain. So I'll click on Register Domain, and I want to register one called animalsforlife.org, which is the one I'll be using for the course scenario. So I'll go ahead and type that. When I do, it will give me a price, and I can use this drop down to show all of the top level domains that I can use for the Animals for Life domain. Note how each of them have different prices, so if you're going to use one for your studies, you might want to pick one of the cheaper ones. It's completely up to you. I want to use .org though, so I'll click on check to make sure it's available. What this does is search the database of the .org top-level domain registry to make sure they haven't previously allocated Animals for Life. The green tick means we're all good, the domain hasn't yet been allocated. Now, Route 53 will also show us some alternatives that we can buy if our primary domain choice isn't available. But given in this case that my first choice is available, that's the one that I want, so I'll click on Add to Cart. I can register the domain for different periods, but for this course demo, 1 year is enough, so I'll leave the default selected and click Continue here towards the bottom. Now, most domain registries require 3 contacts for a domain. The registrant contact is somebody who is aware that the domain is being registered and can answer queries in that context. The technical contact is obviously somebody who can assist technically, and the admin contact is somebody who is aware of the admin side of things, so billing and renewal. This is where we enter all of those details. Either use the default, which is entering all the same person, or changing the option at the top so you can enter different individuals. After entering the details, you can also keep them private using this option at the bottom, so the general public won't be able to see any contact information. So I'm going to enter all of these details, and once I've done so, I'll click Continue. Now at the top here it confirms the 3 domain contacts. There's an option for setting auto domain renewal, and that means that AWS automatically handle the renewal. Normally I do leave this on for production domains. And then at the bottom, terms and conditions of the domain registration that you need to accept. So I'll tick that and then click on Complete Order and click Close to remove the notification. Now at this point, AWS are communicating with the .org registry, and this is an organization known as PIR. The first step of this process is to get the animalsforlife.org domain added to the zone file for .org, and this is something that PIR control. Now I can click on Pending Requests on the left, and this shows that the domain is in a pending state. We can't do more until it's moved to complete. It means that this entry has been added to the .org zone file. So that's the first step. That needs to be complete before we can move on in the process. Now, if you are following along and registering your own domain, you might get a few emails during this process. That's fine, it's to be expected. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and wait for the domain to finish registering, which as we now know means that it's going to be added to the .org zone file with the .org registry, which is PIR. Okay, so if I refresh the domain now, it's vanished from here and it's appeared inside registered domains. That means that it's been added to the zone file for the .org top level domain. So if I open up this record, this is the domain record for animalsforlife.org. This is the information that PIR have been given, the record for the domain. I want to draw your attention to the top right. I mentioned earlier that Route 53 can register domains, but also that it provides name server services. Well, these are the name servers which have been allocated and automatically added to the animalsforlife.org entry in the .org zone file. So these 4 servers which are now stored in our domain entry in the .org zone file, they've been allocated by AWS, so they're 4 servers that AWS own and manage. In the background, AWS have also created an object called a hosted zone, which is essentially a zone file for the domain that we've registered. That's a separate thing. So they've gone ahead and created that zone file as part of the process of registering a domain. That zone file has been placed on name servers that AWS manage, and those name servers are the entries that AWS have added here and given to the registry for the .org domain. So that's how these things are linked. They're separate things. So you can register a domain with Route 53 and you can make that domain point at a zone file that's hosted outside of AWS. And you can do that by changing these entries. These are the entries. I've repeated this a couple of times, but it's important. These are the entries that are in the domain record with the .org domain registry. So these are the things that the DNS system uses to point at when anyone's trying to resolve anything in our domain. So you can register a domain with Route 53 and then use that interface to point at some name servers outside of Route 53. Or you could register a domain elsewhere and then create a hosted zone in Route 53 and point that external domain at the name servers that Route 53 gives you. They're separate things. In this case, I have both in Route 53. So I can move to the hosted zones by clicking Manage DNS, or I could have clicked hosted zones at the top left here, and then I can move into the animalsforlife.org zone. And this is a GUI representation of a DNS zone file. And it's in here that we can create DNS records. And when we do, they're going to be active inside DNS. Now that's the end of this demonstration where I've registered a domain. It's important that you understand how this process works end to end. I know it's a fairly complex topic, but it does pay to just try and understand this end to end. If you have any major problems with this, then I suggest you reach out to me. You can do so via social media, or you can go to https://techstudyslack.com. You can join my Slack community, and then inside the #AWS channel, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Maybe I can give you a bit more guidance about how DNS works. So that is everything I wanted to cover in this lesson, so go ahead and complete the video, and when you're ready, you can move on to the next.